The doorbell doesn't ring twice in my house anymore. Most days, it's just the mailman dropping parcels on the porch, or maybe the neighbor's kid chasing his dog past my fence. So when I heard that sharp knock, 3 deliberate raps, I knew something was off. I was wiping down the kitchen counter. Same yellow sponge I've used for months. Leo was upstairs in his room, probably arranging his app icons or reviewing code. Thursday afternoon meant he'd be deep in his routine, headphones on, world locked out. I dried my hands and walked to the door. Through the frosted glass, I could see 2 figures. One tall. One shorter, slimmer. A third shadow lingered near the porch steps. My stomach dropped before I even turned the handle. When I opened it, 12 years slammed into my chest all at once. My daughter stood there in a charcoal blazer, hair pulled back tight, lips painted the kind of red that doesn't smile. She looked older. Sharper. Like someone who'd spent a decade learning how to win arguments. Behind her stood a man in a gray suit, briefcase in hand, expression flat as a textbook. A lawyer. Had to be. "Hi, Mom," Tina said. Her voice was smooth. Practiced. Like she'd rehearsed this moment in a mirror. I couldn't speak. My hand gripped the doorframe so hard I felt the wood dig into my palm. "I know this is unexpected," she continued, glancing at the lawyer, then back at me. "But we need to talk." "About Leo." "Leo," she said his name like it belonged to her. My throat tightened. "You don't get to show up after 12 years and say his name like that." Her expression didn't change. "I'm still his mother. You left him on my porch. I came back, 12 years later." The lawyer shifted his weight, adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Calloway, perhaps we could step inside? This is a legal matter, and it would be more appropriate to discuss it privately." Legal matter, those 2 words made my knees weak. I didn't move. "What kind of legal matter?" Tina's jaw tightened. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded stack of papers. Crisp. Official looking. The kind that come with stamps and signatures. "I'm filing for guardianship," she said. "And I'm claiming rights to Leo's intellectual property." The world tilted. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. Not at first. Guardianship. Intellectual property. Legal terms I'd only ever heard on TV, in courtrooms I'd never imagined stepping into. "You can't be serious." "I am." She held the papers out toward me. "Leo developed his app while living under my legal custody. That makes me entitled to a share of the profits. And given his condition, I believe it's in his best interest that I reassume guardianship to manage his affairs properly." His condition, she said it like it was a flaw. A defect. Something that made him less. I felt my hands start to shake. "You don't know him. You don't know anything about him." "I'm his mother, Mom. I have rights." "You gave up those rights when you walked away." The lawyer stepped forward, voice calm and mechanical. "Mrs. Calloway, legally speaking, parental rights were never formally terminated. Your daughter retained custody. What you've been doing is informal care, which doesn't grant you legal authority over the child's assets or decisions." Child, Leo was 17. Nearly a man. He'd built something from nothing. Created a tool that helped hundreds of kids find their voice when the world told them they didn't have one. And now she wanted to take it. "Get off my porch," I said. Tina's eyes narrowed. "Mom, get off my porch." The lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out another document. He set it on the small table beside the door, right next to the potted fern Leo had helped me replant last spring. "This is a summons," he said. "You're required to appear in court in 2 weeks. If you fail to show, the court will rule in Ms. Mercer's favor by default. Ms. Mercer. She'd changed her name. Dropped mine entirely." Tina stepped back, smoothing her blazer. "I didn't want it to be like this. But Leo deserves stability. Structure. Someone who can help him navigate the business world." "He has that," I said. "He has me." "You're 73 years old, Mom. You can barely use a smartphone." That one stung. Because it was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. I'd learned how to cook his favorite meals even though my arthritis made chopping onions a nightmare. I'd learned his rhythms, his quirks, the way his eyes would dart to the left when he was overwhelmed. I'd learned to love him in a language that didn't need words, and she wanted to call that inadequate. Tina turned and walked down the steps. The lawyer followed, shoes clicking against the concrete. I stood there, frozen, staring at the summons on the table. Inside the house, I heard Leo's door creak open. Footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Cautious. Gran? His voice was soft. Uncertain, I grabbed the papers and shoved them into my cardigan pocket before he could see. Everything okay? He asked, standing in the hallway, hands fidgeting with the hem of his hoodie. I forced a smile. The kind that's more muscle memory than emotion. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just someone at the wrong address. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me a second too long. He always knew when I was lying. He just didn't push. Okay, he said quietly, and turned back upstairs. I waited until I heard his door click shut, then I pulled the papers out and read the first line, petition for guardianship and claims of intellectual property rights. My hands trembled so hard the words blurred. She wanted the boy she once called a burden. Now that he was worth something. 12 years ago, the knock was different, softer. Almost apologetic, I opened the door and found Tina standing there with a duffel bag in one hand and Leo's tiny fingers gripped in the other. He was 5 years old. Wearing a Spider-Man shirt 2 sizes too big and mismatched socks. Mom, Tina said, voice shaking. I need help. I looked at her face. Makeup smudged under her eyes. Hair unwashed. The kind of exhausted that comes from weeks of not sleeping right. Come in, I said. She pulled Leo inside. He didn't look at me. Didn't look at anything. Just stared at the floor, rocking slightly on his heels. Tina dropped the duffel bag by the door. I can't do this anymore. Do what? Him. She gestured toward Leo like he was a problem she couldn't solve. He doesn't talk. Doesn't sleep. Screams when I touch him. I can't, her voice cracked. I can't be his mom right now. Those 2 words should have been a warning. What are you saying? I asked. I need a break. Just a month. Maybe 2. I'll get my head straight, find a better job, a better place. Then I'll come back. Leo made a small humming sound. High-pitched. Repetitive. Tina flinched. I knelt down in front of him, careful not to get too close. Hey, Leo. Remember me? I'm Gran. He didn't respond. Just kept humming. Tina wiped her eyes. He does that when he's stressed. The doctors said it's stimmying or something. I don't know. I can't keep track of all the terms they throw at me. What doctors? The ones at the clinic. They think he's autistic. But they want more tests, more appointments, more money I don't have. She grabbed her purse from the couch. I left his stuff in the bag. His meds are in the side pocket. He needs them before bed or he won't sleep. Tina, I'll call you in a few days, okay? Once I'm settled, she kissed the top of Leo's head. He didn't react, then she walked out, just like that. I stood there holding the door open, watching her car pull away, taillights disappearing down the street. Leo hummed louder. I closed the door. The house felt too quiet. Too big. I'd been alone since Bernard died 3 years earlier, and I'd gotten used to the silence. But this was different. This silence had weight. I looked down at Leo. He was still staring at the floor, rocking. Okay, I said softly. Let's figure this out together. That first night, I learned what chaos looked like. He wouldn't eat. Wouldn't sit. Wouldn't let me touch him. I tried to give him dinner mac and cheese, the kind kids usually love, but he screamed the second I put the bowl in front of him. Not a tantrum scream. A pain scream. Like the food itself hurt him. I took it away. Tried chicken nuggets. Same reaction. Tried a banana. He threw it across the room. By 8 o'clock, I was exhausted and he still hadn't eaten a single bite. I sat on the floor across from him, watching him line up his toy cars. He pulled them from the duffel bag and arranged them in a perfect row along the kitchen tiles. Red, blue, yellow, green. Over and over. If one was even slightly out of place, he'd start again. You like patterns, huh? I said. He didn't answer. Didn't even glance up, but his hands moved with precision. Deliberate. Focused, I stayed there on the floor, just watching. Around 9, he finally looked at me. Just for a second. Then back to the cars. Progressed. I tried to get him into bed at 10. He wouldn't go upstairs. Wouldn't leave the kitchen. So I brought blankets down and made a spot for him on the floor near his cars. He curled up there without a word. I sat in the chair nearby, too afraid to leave him alone. Somewhere around midnight, his breathing evened out. He slept. I didn't. The next morning, Tina didn't call. Or the morning after that. I tried her cell. Straight to voicemail. Tried her apartment. Disconnected number. By the end of the first week, I knew she wasn't coming back, not in a month. Not in 2. Maybe not ever. Leo still wasn't talking. Still wasn't eating much. Still spent hours lining up those toy cars in perfect rows, but he'd started looking at me. Little glances. Quick. Like he was checking to see if I was still there. I was. One morning, I knelt beside him while he arranged the cars. I don't know what I'm doing, I whispered. But I'm not leaving. Okay? He didn't respond, but he moved one of the cars closer to me. Red one. His favorite. I picked it up carefully, then placed it back in line exactly where it had been. He looked at me. Really looked, and for the first time since Tina left, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't fear. It was trust. 2 weeks later, I stopped waiting for Tina to call. I boxed up Bernard's clothes, cleared out the guest room, and set up a space just for Leo. Same bedtime. Same breakfast. Same route to the park. Patterns became our language, and in those patterns, I started to see something nobody else had. Leo wasn't broken, he was just wired differently, and maybe, just maybe, that wiring was going to change everything. I learned his world by watching. Every morning, Leo woke up at 6:47. Not 6:45. Not 6:50. Exactly 6:47. If I tried to wake him earlier, he'd shut down for hours. If I let him sleep past it, same thing. So I set my alarm for 6:30 and started every day 17 minutes before he did. Breakfast was always the same. 2 scrambled eggs. 1 slice of toast, cut diagonally. Orange juice in the blue cup, never the red one. The first time I used the red cup by mistake, he didn't cry. Didn't yell, he just stared at it like I'd handed him poison. I switched it out. Watched his shoulders drop. Watched him finally take a sip. That's when I understood, his world had rules I couldn't see. But if I paid attention, he'd teach me. We walked the same route every afternoon. Down Maple Street, left on Oak, past the library, around the park, back home. If a car was parked in a different spot than yesterday, he'd stop. Study it. Process the change. I learned to wait. People stared sometimes. An old woman standing on the sidewalk with a kid who wouldn't move. I stopped caring what they thought. One day, Mrs. Kowalski from 2 blocks over stopped her car and rolled down the window. Everything all right, Margaret? We're fine, I said. Just taking our time. She glanced at Leo, then back at me. Her face softened. He's lucky to have you. I didn't feel lucky. I felt tired. My knees ached from kneeling on the kitchen floor. My back hurt from sleeping in the chair those first few weeks, but when Leo finally started walking again, continuing our route like nothing happened, I felt something else. Purpose. Bedtime was 8:15. Same story every night. Not a book. He didn't like books. He liked me to count 1 to 100. Slow and steady. I'd sit on the edge of his bed, and he'd lie there with his eyes closed, hands folded on his chest, listening. Some nights he'd fall asleep by 30. Other nights I'd hit 100 and have to start over. I never minded. It was the only time he looked peaceful. 3 months in, something shifted. I was making breakfast, same eggs, same toast, and he walked into the kitchen and stood next to me, just stood there, waiting. I handed him the blue cup. He took it. Then looked at me. Eye contact. It only lasted a second. But it felt like winning the lottery. Good morning, Leo, I said softly. He didn't say it back. But his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. I held on to that moment for weeks. The loneliness I'd carried since Bernard died started to feel different. Less heavy. I wasn't alone anymore. I had Leo, and slowly, carefully, he was letting me in. One afternoon, I was cleaning out the hall closet and found Bernard's old radio. It was one of those vintage ones. Wood casing. Big silver dials. He used to sit in his chair every Sunday and twist the knobs, hunting for baseball games. I wiped the dust off and plugged it in. Static filled the room. Leo's head snapped up from where he was sitting with his cars. He stood. Walked over. Stared at the radio like it was speaking to him. I twisted the dial slowly. Stations flickered in and out. Voices. Music. Static. Leo reached out and touched the knob. I stepped back. He turned it. Slowly at first. Then faster. Testing the limits. Watching how the numbers on the display changed with each twist, he found a station playing classical music. Stopped. Listened, then turned the dial again. Found talk radio. Stopped. Listened. He did this for 20 minutes straight. I just watched. His face was different. Focused. Curious, alive. When he finally stepped away, he looked at me and pointed to the radio. You like that? I asked it. He nodded. First nod. First clear response to a question. I wanted to cry. But I didn't. Didn't want to scare him. We can keep it in the living room if you want, I said. He nodded again. From that day on, the radio stayed on the side table near the couch. Every evening, after our walk, he'd sit in front of it and twist the dials. He wasn't listening to the stations. He was studying them, watching how the frequencies changed. How the static cleared. How the voices appeared and disappeared depending on where the needle landed. I didn't understand it. But I didn't need to. He'd found something that made sense to him. One night, I was folding laundry and I heard him laugh, soft. Almost silent. But definitely a laugh. He'd landed on a station playing some old comedy show. The kind with a laugh track. I froze. Held my breath. He laughed again. I sat down on the couch next to him, careful not to get too close. We listened together. He didn't look at me. But he didn't move away either, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe we were going to be okay. A week later, he touched my hand. We were sitting at the kitchen table. I was reading the newspaper. He was drawing shapes on a piece of paper, triangles, mostly, all the same size. He reached over and tapped the back of my hand twice. I looked at him. He pointed to the radio in the other room. You want to listen? I asked. He nodded. I stood up, and he followed me. We sat on the couch together. I turned the radio on. He twisted the dial until he found a station playing instrumental music. Piano and strings. We stayed there for an hour. No words. No eye contact, just music and presence. It was enough. By the end of that first year, I knew his rhythms better than my own, and somewhere in the routine, in the counting and walking in quiet moments by the radio, I stopped feeling like I was just surviving. I was living again. With him, Leo turned 9 the year everything changed. He still wasn't talking. Still followed the same routines. But something new started happening. Numbers. He'd always liked patterns, but now he was obsessed with them. He'd sit at the kitchen table with a notebook and fill entire pages with sequences. 2, 4, 6, 8. Then 3, 6, 9, 12. Then something more complex I couldn't follow. I'd watch him write for hours, his pencil moving fast, eyes locked on the page like he was solving mysteries I couldn't see. One afternoon, he drew a perfect hexagon without a ruler, then another. Then 20 more, all identical. How do you do that? I asked. He didn't answer. Just kept drawing, but I saw it. The precision. The focus. His brain worked differently. And maybe that wasn't a weakness, maybe it was a gift. By the time he turned 10, I knew he needed more than notebooks. He needed tools. I thought about Bernard's old truck sitting in the garage. Hadn't driven it in 7 years. Couldn't bring myself to sell it because it felt like letting him go all over again, but Leo needed something I couldn't give him on my pension alone. So I put an ad in the paper, sold it for $3,000 to a guy who restored classic Fords. I cried when he drove it away, then I dried my face and went straight to the computer shop downtown. I need a laptop, I told the kid behind the counter. Something good, but cheap. He showed me a refurbished one. Black. A little scratched. But it worked, it's got internet, all the basics, he said. Perfect for students. I paid cash. Carried it home like it was made of glass. That night, I set it on the kitchen table in front of Leo. He stared at it. "This is yours," I said. "I thought maybe you'd like it." He reached out slowly, touched the edge of the keyboard, then opened it. The screen lit up. His eyes went wide. For the first time in weeks, he smiled. I didn't know what he'd do with it. Honestly, I thought he'd maybe play games or watch videos. I was wrong. 2 days later, I found him watching a tutorial on something called Python. A man on the screen was typing code, explaining loops and variables. Leo was taking notes. Actual notes. Writing down commands in his notebook like he was studying a language. "What is this?" I asked it. He pointed to the screen. Didn't say anything. But his finger tapped twice on the word coding. I sat down next to him. I didn't understand a single thing the guy was saying. It was all brackets and colons and words that didn't mean what I thought they meant, but Leo understood. I could see it in his face. The way his eyes tracked every line. The way his fingers twitched like he was imagining typing it himself. "Okay," I said. "Teach me." He looked at me. Really looked, then he rewound the video and started it over. We watched together. I didn't understand it. But I tried. He'd pause the video, type something, run it. If it worked, he'd nod. If it didn't, he'd stare at the screen until he found the mistake. I made us sandwiches. Brought him water. Stayed close. For 3 weeks, he did nothing but code. He barely slept. Barely ate. I had to remind him to take breaks, but I didn't stop him, because for the first time since Tina left, he looked happy. Then one morning, I woke up and found him waiting for me in the kitchen. He had the laptop open. A program running. He pointed to the screen. It was a schedule. His schedule: 6:47, wake up 7:00, breakfast 7:30, walk all the way down to bedtime. But here's the thing: he didn't type it. The program generated it. Automatically. Based on patterns he'd taught it. "You made this?" I asked it. He nodded. I stared at the screen. At the lines of code in the background. At the clean, simple interface. He'd built something from nothing. "Leo, this is incredible." He didn't react. Just watched me. I scrolled through the program. It even had reminders. Little pop-ups that would alert him 5 minutes before each task. "Does it work?" I asked it. He clicked a button. A notification popped up on the screen. "Time for breakfast." I looked at the clock. 7 o'clock exactly. My throat tightened. He'd automated his entire life. Taken the routines we'd built together and turned them into something he could control, something predictable. Safe. I reached over and closed the laptop gently. He looked at me, confused. "This is amazing," I said. "But you know what's even better?" He tilted his head. "You just spoke to me." He frowned. I tapped the screen. "This. You built this to show me how your brain works." That's talking, Leo. Maybe not with words. But it's still talking. He stared at the laptop. Then at me, then he opened it again and typed something. A message box appeared on the screen. "Thank you, Grant." I lost it. Tears came fast. I didn't try to stop them. He'd written me a message. 5 words. But they were his. He didn't hug me. Didn't say anything out loud, but he reached over and tapped my hand twice. Our signaled. "I'm here." That night, I sat on the porch and thought about Bernard. About the truck. About everything we'd lost and everything we'd found. Leo was inside, still coding, still building. And I knew, right then, that whatever he created next was going to be bigger than both of us. Leo was 16 when he stopped coding for himself and started coding for others. It happened on a Tuesday. We were at the clinic for his yearly check-in. Same place we'd been going since he was 7. The waiting room was full of kids like him, some rocking, some humming, some sitting perfectly still. One boy, maybe 8 years old, was crying. Not loud. Just tears streaming down his face while his mom tried to calm him. "What's wrong, baby? Tell me what's wrong." He couldn't. He just kept crying. Leo watched him for a long time. When we got home, he went straight to his room. Didn't eat dinner. Didn't come down for our evening walk. I knocked on his door around 9. "Leo? You okay?" No answer. I cracked the door open. He was at his desk, typing so fast his fingers blurred. Sweetheart, you need to sleep. He held up one finger. Wait, I sighed and left him alone. He worked through the night. When I woke up the next morning, he was still there. Eyes red. Hair a mess. But there was something on his screen I'd never seen before. A grid of icons. Simple pictures. A glass of water. A bathroom. A bed. A person. A question mark. He clicked one. The computer spoke. I need water. He clicked another. I am scared. My chest tightened. Leo, what is this? He typed something and turned the screen toward me. For kids who can't talk. I sat down on his bed, staring at the program. He'd built a communication tool. Icons that spoke when you touched them. Simple. Fast. Clear. This is for that boy at the clinic, isn't it? He nodded. I felt my eyes sting. Can I try it? He handed me the laptop. I clicked the icon of a heart. I love you, the computer said. I looked at him. He was watching me, waiting. You just gave a voice to every kid who's ever felt invisible, I whispered. He didn't smile. But his shoulders relaxed. That was enough. 3 days later, I called the clinic. Hi, this is Margaret Calloway. My grandson built something I think you should see. The director, a woman named Dr. Patel, agreed to meet us. We brought the laptop. Leo barely looked at her. But when she saw the program, her expression changed. This is remarkable, she said, clicking through the icons. How long did this take you? Leo held up 2 fingers. 2 weeks, she asked. He shook his head. 2 days, he nodded, her eyes widened. We have to test this. With real patients. Would you be okay with that? Leo looked at me. I squeezed his shoulder. It's your choice. He nodded. Within a month, 5 kids were using it. Within 2 months, 20. By the end of the year, therapists across Oregon were calling us, asking how they could get the program for their patients. Leo didn't charge them. He just sent it. Free download. Open access. I told him he should ask for something. Even a donation. He typed a response. They need it more than I need money. That's when I knew he wasn't just smart, he was good. The first news story came out when he was 17. Local paper. Small piece on page 6. Teen developer creates communication tool for nonverbal children. Then a TV station picked it up, then another. Suddenly, we had reporters on our porch. Camera crews in our driveway. Leo hated it. He'd hide in his room while I answered their questions. How does it feel to raise a genius? Does he have plans to expand the program? What's next for him? I kept my answers short. Polite. But I didn't like the attention. We were private people. We liked our routines. Still, I was proud. Every morning, I still made him the same breakfast. 2 scrambled eggs. 1 slice of toast, cut diagonally. Orange juice in the blue cup. Nothing changed at home, even when the app hit 10,000 downloads, even when therapy centers started donating money to support his work, even when a tech magazine called him the voice for the voiceless. At home, we were still just as. One evening, after a long day of interviews, Leo and I sat on the porch. The sun was setting. Orange and pink streaks across the sky. He had his laptop open, working on an update to the app I was knitting. Same blanket I'd been working on for 2 years. You know you're changing lives, right? I said. He didn't look up. But his fingers paused on the keyboard. I'm serious. Kids who couldn't tell their parents they were hungry or scared or happy, they can now. Because of you. He typed something and turned the screen toward me. Because of you too. I shook my head. I just made breakfast. He typed again. You made me feel safe. That's why I could build this. I couldn't speak. Just reached over and squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. That night, I went to bed feeling like maybe, just maybe, all the hard years had been worth it. But 3 days later, the phone rang. A lawyer from California. Polite voice. Professional tone. Is this Margaret Calloway? Yes, I'm calling on behalf of Tina Mercer. She'd like to discuss a matter regarding her son, Leo. My stomach dropped. She has no son, I said, and hung up. But the calls didn't stop. The letters started arriving a week later, and I knew the quiet life we'd built was about to shatter. The headline ran on a Thursday: Young developer with autism revolutionizes communication. App reaches 50,000 users. Leo's photo was on the front page of the tech section. Not a great photo. He was looking down, avoiding the camera, but it was him. By Friday, the article had been shared 12,000 times. By Saturday, Tina knew that I didn't see it coming. Didn't think she'd even care, but on Sunday morning, she knocked on my door with a lawyer and a briefcase full of paperwork. That's how we ended up here, standing in my kitchen. The same kitchen where I'd made Leo breakfast every single morning for 12 years, now it was full of strangers with expensive watches and sharp voices. Tina sat at my table like she owned it. The lawyer, his name was Garrett Finch, he'd said, stood beside her, pulling documents from his briefcase. Mrs. Calloway, let me be clear, he said. Ms. Mercer never relinquished parental rights. She entrusted you with temporary care. That doesn't grant you guardianship. Legally, Leo is still her dependent. Temporary? My voice cracked. It's been 12 years, informal arrangements don't supersede biology, Finch said. And given Leo's recent success, Ms. Mercer believes it's in his best interest that she resume her role as his legal guardian. I looked at Tina. You don't care about what's best for him. You care about the money, she flinched. But her voice stayed calm. That's not fair, Mom. I've changed. I'm stable now. I have a job, a home. I can provide for him in ways you can't. He doesn't need providing. He's doing fine. He's 17, she said. He needs someone who understands the business side of what he's built. Someone who can protect his assets. I protect him every day. You're 73, Finch interjected. With all due respect, you lack the legal authority and capacity to manage a minor's intellectual property portfolio. The app generates revenue. There are contracts, licensing deals, potential investors. This requires professional oversight, he said it like I was some clueless old woman who couldn't read a contract. Maybe I couldn't. But I knew Leo. I knew what he needed, and it wasn't her. He built that app himself. I said. It's his. Finch pulled out another document. Not legally. Ms. Mercer retained custody, which means any intellectual property created by a minor under her guardianship falls under her purview. That's not how it works. It is in Oregon, he said. We've already consulted with 3 family law attorneys. The precedent is clear. My hands started shaking. You can't just take him. I'm not taking him, Tina said softly. I'm reclaiming my place as his mother. You left him. I made a mistake. You called him a burden. Her jaw tightened. I was young. Overwhelmed. I didn't know how to handle his needs, and now you do. Now I have resources. Finch spread 3 documents across the table. This is a petition for guardianship. This is a claim for intellectual property rights. And this is a custody arrangement proposal. We're not trying to shut you out, Mrs. Calloway. You can still see Leo. But Ms. Mercer needs to be his legal guardian. I stared at the papers. Words blurred together. Petitioner. Respondent. Jurisdiction. I need a lawyer, I said. You're welcome to retain one, Finch said. But I'd advise you to consider settlement. Court battles are expensive. And the outcome is predictable. Get out, Tina stood. Mom, get out of my house. Finch gathered the documents and slid them back into his briefcase. We'll be filing these with the court on Monday. You'll receive an official summons within the week. They left. I stood there, gripping the edge of the counter, trying not to fall apart. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, slow. Hesitant, Leo appeared in the doorway. His face was pale. His hands were trembling. Gran? His voice was barely a whisper. It's okay, sweetheart. Who was that? I couldn't lie to him. That was your mom. His eyes went wide. Mom, she came to visit. Why? I didn't know how to answer. Didn't know how to explain that the woman who abandoned him now wanted him back because he was worth something. She just wanted to talk, I said. He stared at me. Then at the table where the papers had been, is she taking me? My heart broke. No. No one's taking you anywhere, but even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was true. That night, Leo didn't eat. Didn't code. Didn't touch his laptop. He just sat on the couch, staring at the wall. I tried to talk to him. Asked if he wanted to listen to the radio. Go for a walk. Anything. He shook his head. By bedtime, he still hadn't said a word. I counted for him like I always did. 1 to 100. But when I finished, he didn't close his eyes. Gran, he whispered, yeah, why did she leave? I didn't have a good answer. I don't know, sweetheart, was it because of me? No. It was never because of you. He was quiet for a long time. Then, why does she want me now? I wanted to lie. Wanted to tell him she missed him, that she realized her mistake, that she loved him, but I couldn't. I don't know, I said again. He turned onto his side, facing the wall. I stayed until his breathing evened out, but I don't think he slept. The next morning, I called every lawyer in town. Most of them said the same thing. Finch had, biology trumps care. Custody trumps love. One finally agreed to meet with me. A younger guy named Aaron West. He listened to my story. Took notes. Then leaned back in his chair. Do you have any documentation? Texts, emails, anything showing she abandoned him? She just left. There was nothing formal. That's going to be a problem. What do you mean? Without proof of abandonment or neglect, the court defaults to the biological parent. Especially if she's stable now. But I've raised him for 12 years, I know. But legally, you're a caregiver. Not a guardian. I felt sick. What about Leo? Doesn't he get a say? He's 17. The court will consider his wishes. But ultimately, the judge decides what's in his best interest. And you think they'll choose her? He hesitated. I think it's going to be a fight. I left his office feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath me. When I got home, Leo was at the kitchen table. Laptop closed. Hands folded. Gran? Yeah? What did the lady call you? I frowned. What lady? The one who was here. With Mom. I realized he'd been listening. Hiding at the top of the stairs. What did she say? I asked carefully. His voice was flat. Empty. She called you the babysitter. The documents started arriving 3 days later, not just one envelope. 7. All certified mail. All requiring signatures. I spread them across the kitchen table. Legal motions. Affidavits. Custody evaluations. Psychological assessments. Words I didn't understand filled every page. Petitioner asserts rightful claim to guardianship pursuant to ORS 109.119. Respondent lacks legal standing to contest biological parents' custodial authority. I read the same sentence 4 times and still didn't know what it meant. Aaron, my lawyer, tried to explain it over the phone. They're flooding you, he said. It's a tactic. Overwhelm you with paperwork so you give up before we even get to court. I'm not giving up, I know. But we need to respond to every single one of these. And that takes time. And money I didn't have to. I'd already drained half my savings just to retain him. By the end of the week, 12 more documents arrived, then 6 more. My kitchen table disappeared under stacks of paper. My counters. My couch, every surface in the house was covered. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't think. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tina's lawyer pulling out another form, another demand, another threat. Leo watched from the doorway. He didn't ask questions. Didn't interrupt, but I could see it in his face that he was scared. One morning, I found him sitting at the table, staring at the papers. Don't worry about this, I said. I'm handling it. He didn't move. Just kept staring. I started to clean up, stacking documents into piles. Gran, he said quietly. I stopped. Can I look at them? At what? The papers. I hesitated. They're just legal stuff. Boring, pleased. I didn't know why he wanted to. But I couldn't say no. Okay. But don't stress about it. He nodded and pulled the nearest stack toward him. For the next 3 hours, he didn't move. He read every page. Slowly. Carefully. I made lunch. He didn't eat it. I tried to get him to take a break. He shook his head. By evening, he'd gone through half the pile. His laptop sat open beside him. He'd type something, then go back to reading. Leo, what are you doing? He didn't answer. I let him be. The next day, he did the same thing. Read. Typed. Read some more. On the third day, I woke up at 2 a.m. and found him still at the table. Eyes bloodshot. Hands shaking from exhaustion. Leo, you need to sleep, not yet. Sweetheart, this isn't healthy. Almost done. I sat down across from him. Done with what? He turned the laptop toward me. The screen was full of spreadsheets. Columns of dates, timestamps, file names, metadata. What is this? He pointed to one of the legal documents. Then to a line in his spreadsheet. Filed March 14th, 10:32 a.m. I read aloud that he pointed to another document, filed March 14th, 10:32 a.m. Then another, same timestamp. He scrolled down. 6 more documents. All filed at the exact same time. That's weird, I said. He nodded. Then he showed me something else. A line of code buried in the document's metadata. It looked like gibberish to me. Random letters and numbers, but he highlighted another document. Same code, then another. Same code again. They're identical, I said. He typed something, they copied and pasted. Changed the dates. But forgot to change the hidden data, asterisk. My heart stopped. Are you saying these are fake? He nodded. I grabbed the papers, reading through them again. They looked legitimate. Official stamps. Signatures. Fancy letterhead, but if Leo was right, if they'd copied the same template over and over and just changed the visible information, that meant they'd fabricated evidence. Leo, are you sure? He pulled up another screen. A program he'd written. It scanned documents for metadata patterns. He dragged one of the PDFs into it. The program highlighted matches. Duplicate timestamps. Repeated code strings. Identical formatting errors. 17 documents. All copied from the same source file. Oh my God, I whispered. He looked at me. His face was pale but his eyes were sharp. We need to show Aaron, I said. Leo saved everything to a USB drive. The next morning, we drove to Aaron's office. He was skeptical at first. Metadata can be tricky, he said. It's not always admissible, but it proves they lied, I said. It proves they used a template. That's not illegal. Look closer, Leo said. Aaron froze. Leo almost never spoke to strangers. He took the USB drive and plugged it into his computer. Leo walked him through it. Pointed out every duplicate timestamp. Every repeated code. Every inconsistency. Aaron's expression changed. This isn't just a template, he said slowly. They backdated documents. Made it look like they filed motions weeks ago when they actually filed them last Tuesday. Can we use this? I asked. He stared at the screen. If we can prove intent to deceive the court, we can get their entire case thrown out. How do we prove intent? Aaron looked at Leo. Can you make this easier to see? Something a judge would understand? Leo nodded. He spent the next 2 days building a visualization program. It mapped every document. Showed the connections. Highlighted the duplicates in red. When he finished, it looked like a spider web. Lines connecting fake documents to real ones. Timestamps branching out like veins. It was impossible to ignore. Aaron stared at it. This is brilliant. Will it work? I asked. If the judge sees this, Tina's team is done. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. That night, Leo sat at the table, staring at his laptop. I made him tea. Set it beside him. You did good, sweetheart. He didn't look up. Just kept staring. Leo? They lied, he said softly. I know, they tried to take me with lies. My throat tightened. Yeah. They did. He closed the laptop. Looked at me. They copied themselves. I frowned. What do you mean? The papers. The files. The code. He paused. They copied themselves. Over and over. Hoping no one would notice, but you noticed, he nodded, because you see patterns no one else does. He was quiet for a moment. Then, that's why she wants me now. Because I'm useful. My chest ached. You've always been more than useful, Leo. You've always been enough. He didn't respond. Just stared at his hands, but I saw it. the smallest flicker of belief, and I held on to that. Leo disappeared into his room at 7 o'clock that night. Didn't eat dinner. Didn't say goodnight, just closed the door. I stood outside for a moment, listening, the sound of typing. Fast. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. I knocked softly. Leo? You okay? Working, he said. That was all. I went downstairs and tried to distract myself. Folded laundry. Washed dishes. Stared at the TV without seeing it, but I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. Asterisk, they copied themselves. He'd found the lies. Exposed them. But now he was doing something else, something bigger. Around 10, I went back upstairs. The light under his door was still on. I knocked again. Leo, you need to sleep. No answer, just typing. I cracked the door open. He was hunched over his laptop, eyes locked on the screen. His water bottle sat untouched. The sandwich I'd left earlier still on the plate. Sweetheart, please. Take a break, almost there, he muttered, his voice was hoarse. Tired, almost where? He didn't answer. Just kept typing. I stood there, helpless, watching him work himself into the ground. 5 more minutes, I said. Then you rest. He nodded. But I knew he was lying. I went back downstairs. Midnight came. Then 1. Then 2. The house was silent except for the sound of his keyboard clicking above me. I made coffee. Strong. Black. The way Bernard used to drink it during tax season when he'd work until dawn. I poured a cup and brought it upstairs. Leo's door was still cracked open. I pushed it wider. He hadn't moved. Same position. Same focus, but his hands were shaking now, not from cold. From exhaustion. Leo, he didn't look up. I set the coffee on his desk. Drink this. He reached for it without breaking eye contact with the screen. Took a sip. Set it down, kept typing. I sat on the edge of his bed, watching. The screen was filled with lines of code. Green text on a black background. Scrolling faster than I could read. Numbers. Symbols. Words I didn't recognize, but I could see the structure. The way everything connected. He was building something. What is this? I asked quietly. Detection program, he said. Scans documents. Finds patterns. Flags forgeries. Didn't you already do that? That was manual. This is automatic. He typed something. Hit enter. A progress bar appeared on the screen. 67% complete. He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. It checks metadata, timestamps, file origins, code signatures, he said. Everything. If something's copied or backdated, it highlights it. Red for confirmed forgeries. Yellow for suspicious. Green for cleaned. I stared at him. You built all that tonight, started 3 days ago. Finishing now. His hands were still trembling. His face was pale. Leo, you're exhausted. Can't stop. Why not? He finally looked at me. His eyes were red. Glassy, because if I don't finish, they win. My heart broke. Sweetheart, Aaron's handling it. You've done enough, not enough. He said. Aaron can show the judge what I found. But this, he tapped the screen. This proves it's not just their documents. It's a system. They're doing this to other people too. I froze. What? I searched public records. Found 12 other cases. Same lawyer. Same timestamps. Same metadata patterns. Finch, he nodded. He's been filing fake documents for years. No one noticed because no one looked, and you're going to expose all of it? Yes, I didn't know what to say. He was 17. A kid who still needed me to remind him to eat, and he was taking down a corrupt lawyer. Are you sure about this? I asked. Yes, this could make things worse. They could come after you, let them. His voice was quiet. But there was steel in it. I stood and kissed the top of his head. Okay. Then let's finish this. I pulled the chair from the corner and sat beside him. Tell me what you need. He glanced at me. Surprised. Coffee, he said. Already made. More coffee. I smiled. On it, I went downstairs and made a full pot, brought it up with 2 mugs. We sat side by side. Him typing. Me watching, the screen filled with green lines. Code compiling. Programs running, the progress bar crept forward 0.74%, 0.81%. I didn't understand what I was seeing. But I understood what it meant. He was fighting back, not with words. Not with anger, with logic. With proof. With patterns only he could see. Around 4 a.m, his typing slowed, the progress bar hit 93%, then 96%, his fingers hovered over the keys. Waiting 0.98%, 0.99%, the screen flashed. Compilation complete. Leo exhaled. Long and slow, then he clicked a button. A new window opened. A clean interface. Simple. Elegant. Document Integrity Scanner version 1.0. He dragged one of Finch's documents into it. The program analyzed it in seconds. Red highlights appeared across the page. Timestamps flagged. Metadata exposed. Forgery detected. Confidence, 98.7%. Leo ran another document, same result, then another. 17 documents. 17 forgeries, all confirmed. He leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. It's ready, he whispered. I looked at the screen. At the program he'd built in one sleepless night. At the proof that would save us. You did it, I said. He didn't respond. Just sat there, breathing. I thought he might cry. Or smile. Or say something, but he didn't. He just opened his eyes, looked at me, and nodded once. That was enough. I stood and pulled a blanket over his shoulders. Sleep now, I said. We'll handle the rest in the morning. He didn't argue. Just closed the laptop and rested his head on the desk. Within minutes, he was out. I stayed there, watching him sleep. His hands were still trembling. His breathing was shallow, but he'd done it. He'd turned his pain into power, and tomorrow, we'd make sure the world saw it. The courtroom smelled like old wood and anxiety. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Hard benches lined the gallery. Everything was beige and sterile and cold. I sat in the front row, hands folded in my lap, trying not to shake. Leo sat beside me. Clean shirt. Hair combed. But his leg bounced under the table. Fast. Nervous. Aaron was on his other side, arranging papers, whispering last-minute instructions. Across the aisle, Tina sat with Garrett Finch. She wore a navy dress. Pearl earrings. Hair styled perfectly. She looked like a mother. I looked like what I was, a tired old woman who'd been fighting for 2 months straight. The bailiff stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Brennan presiding. We stood. Judge Brennan entered. Mid-50s. Sharp eyes. No-nonsense expression. She sat. We Saturday case number 24 to 7731, she said. Mercer versus Callaway. Petition for guardianship and intellectual property claims. Finch stood. Smooth. Confident. Your Honor, this is a straightforward matter. Ms. Mercer is the biological mother of the minor, Leo Mercer. She retained legal custody throughout his upbringing. Mrs. Callaway provided informal care, but that doesn't grant her guardianship rights. My client seeks to resume her rightful role and ensure her son's business interests are properly managed. Judge Brennan looked at Aaron. Counsel. Aaron stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Callaway has raised Leo for 12 years. She's provided stability, care, and support while Ms. Mercer was absent. Furthermore, we have evidence that Ms. Mercer's legal filings contain significant irregularities. Finch laughed. Actually laughed. Irregularities? Your Honor, this is a desperate attempt to discredit legitimate legal documentation. Then you won't mind if we examine them, Aaron said. Judge Brennan's eyes narrowed. What kind of irregularities? Aaron glanced at Leo. Your Honor, with your permission, Leo has prepared a presentation. Finch stood. Objection. The minor isn't qualified to present evidence. He created the evidence, Aaron said. And he's the one who discovered the fraud. The word hung in the air. Fraud. Finch's jaw tightened. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime, Aaron replied. Judge Brennan looked at Leo. Young man, do you have something to show me? Leo nodded. Didn't speak. Just nodded. Approach, she said. Aaron set up a laptop on the table facing the judge. Leo plugged in a USB drive. His hands were shaking. But his face was calm. He opened the program, the screen filled with his visualization. The spider web of documents. Red lines connecting forgeries. Timestamps highlighted. Metadata exposed. What am I looking at? Judge Brennan asked. Leo's voice was quiet, but steady. Proof. He clicked the first document. A motion filed by Finch on March 14. The program scanned it. Red highlights appeared. Forgery detected. Timestamp manipulated. Metadata duplicated. This document claims it was filed 3 weeks ago, Leo said. But the metadata shows it was created last Tuesday. Then backdated. Finch stood. Your Honor, metadata can be unreliable. I'm not finished, Leo said. Everyone froze. Leo never interrupted. Never raised his voice, but he did now. He clicked another document. Same result, then another. And another. 17 documents. 17 forgeries. Judge Brennan leaned forward, studying the screen. Mr. Finch, she said slowly. Do you care to explain this? Finch's face went red. Your Honor, I assure you, because it looks to me like you fabricated evidence. That's absurd. We used a standard template. With identical timestamps? She turned to her clerk. Pull the original filings. Cross-check the dates. The clerk nodded and left the room. Silence. Tina stared at Finch. Her perfect facade cracking. You told me everything was legitimate, she hissed. It is, Finch said. But his voice wavered. The clerk returned 5 minutes later. Handed Judge Brennan a folder. She read through it. Her expression darkened. Mr. Finch, according to court records, 12 of these documents were filed on the same day. Yet your copies show different dates spanning 3 weeks. There must be a clerical error. Don't insult my intelligence. Her voice was ice. She looked at Leo. Did you create this program yourself? He nodded. How old are you? 17. She stared at him for a long moment. Then at the screen. This is extraordinary work. Thank you, he whispered. She turned back to Finch. I'm referring this matter to the State Bar for investigation. You're dismissed, Your Honor, I said. Dismissed. Finch grabbed his briefcase. Didn't look at Tina. Just walked out. Tina sat frozen. Her lawyer was gone. Her case was collapsing. Judge Brennan looked at her. Ms. Mercer, do you wish to continue without counsel? Tina's hands trembled. I didn't know. He told me. You didn't ask questions, the judge said. You saw an opportunity and you took it. Tina's eyes filled with tears. But they felt empty. Performative. I just want my son back. You had 12 years to want him back, Judge Brennan said. You showed up when he became profitable. That's not true, isn't it? Silence. Tina looked at Leo. Baby, I'm sorry. I made mistakes. But I'm still your mom. Leo didn't look at her. Say something, she pleaded. Please. He turned. Met her eyes. You're not my mom, he said quietly. Gren is. Tina's face crumpled. Judge Brennan took off her glasses. Rubbed her eyes. I've seen enough, she said. Mrs. Calloway, how long have you cared for Leo? I stood. My voice shook. 12 years, Your Honor. And in that time, has Ms. Mercer provided financial support? Visited? Called? No, ma'am. Has Leo expressed a desire to live with his biological mother? No, ma'am. She looked at Leo. Is that true? He nodded. She wrote something down. Then looked up. Guardianship is hereby granted to Margaret Calloway. Full legal and financial authority. Ms. Mercer's petition is denied. Mwines nearly gave out. Furthermore, Judge Brennan continued, Leo's intellectual property rights are confirmed as his own. No third party has claim to his work. She banged the gavel. We're adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Whispers. Movements, but I couldn't hear any of it. I just looked at Leo. He was staring at the table. Breathing slow. We won, I whispered. He nodded. Then, for the first time in months, he smiled. Not big. Not loud, just a small, quiet smile that said everything. Aaron shook my hand. Congratulated us. Said something about paperwork. I wasn't listening. I just wrapped my arms around Leo. He didn't pull away. He leaned in, and I cried. Not sad tears. Not scared tears, relief. Behind us, Tina stood. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. She looked at Leo one last time, then walked out. No goodbye. No apology, just gone again, but this time, it didn't hurt, because this time, we knew she couldn't come back. 6 months later, life looked almost normal again, almost. Leo still woke up at 6:47. Still ate the same breakfast. Still followed the same routines, but something was different now. He smiled more, not often. Not loudly. But enough that I noticed. One morning, he came downstairs holding his laptop, set it on the table next to my coffee. Gran, I want to show you something. I put down the newspaper. What is it? He turned the screen toward me. A website. Clean. Simple. A blue logo at the top, the Leo Fund, communication tools for every child. What's this? I'm donating, he said. 30% of the app's revenue. To buy tablets and software for kids who can't afford them. My throat tightened. Leo, that's your money. I don't need it all, he said. They do. I stared at the screen. At the mission statement he'd written, every child deserves a voice. Not just the ones who can pay for it. When did you do this? Last month. Aaron helped with the paperwork. It's official now. I reached over and squeezed his hand. Your grandpa would be so proud. He looked at me. Really looked. Are you proud? Every single day, I whispered. He nodded. Then went back upstairs to work. I sat there, staring at the website, tears rolling down my face. He'd taken everything they tried to steal from him and turned it into something beautiful. That afternoon, we got a call from a reporter. She wanted to do a follow-up story. Ask about the court case. About Tina. About what happened next. Leo didn't want to do it. I don't need to talk about her, he said. So I did the interview instead, kept it short. Kept it kind. I didn't trash Tina. Didn't call her names. Didn't air every hurt she'd caused. I just told the truth. She left. I stayed. And Leo became the person he was always meant to be. The reporter asked if I was angry. I thought about it. Really thought. No, I said. I'm not angry. I'm grateful. Grateful? She gave me Leo. Maybe not the way she intended. But she gave him to me. And I wouldn't trade these 12 years for anything. When the article came out, people reached out, other grandparents raising grandkids. Other families fighting for custody. Other kids who'd been abandoned and found their way home. They thanked us. Said our story gave them hope. Leo read every message. Didn't respond to most of them. But he read them. One night, he came downstairs and sat next to me on the porch. The sun was setting. Orange and pink streaks across the sky, same view we'd watched 100 times before. Gran? Yeah, do you think she'll ever come back? I didn't sugarcoat it. I don't know. Would you let her? To see you? If you wanted. But she'll never take you again. He nodded. Stared at the horizon. I don't miss her, he said quietly. That's okay. Is it bad that I don't? No, sweetheart. You can't miss someone who was never really there. He leaned his head on my shoulder. We sat like that until the stars came out. Now, sitting here on the same porch, I think about everything we survived, the knock on the door. The lies. The fear, the all-nighter. The courtroom. The moment the judge said we won, people asked me how we did it, how an old woman and a kid who barely spoke took down a lawyer and won against a system designed to favor biology over love, and I tell them the truth. We didn't win because we were loud. We didn't win because we fought dirty. We won because Leo saw what no one else could see, patterns. Proof. Truth buried in code, and he used the same mind they tried to exploit to expose their lies. Justice doesn't always look like I thought it would. It's not always dramatic. Not always wrapped in a bow. Sometimes it's just a 17-year-old kid sitting at a kitchen table, typing through the night, finding the one thread that unravels everything. Sometimes it's quiet. Leo's app just hit 200,000 users last week. Kids all over the world are using it to say I'm hungry. I'm scared. I love you, words they couldn't say before, and every time I see a notification, another download, another thank you message, I think about that little boy who showed up on my porch 12 years ago, silent. Scared. Alone, and I think about the man he's becoming, still quiet. Still careful. But not alone anymore. He's building a life on his own terms, and I get to watch. If you're listening to this, if you're fighting your own battle, raising a kid the world doesn't understand, standing up against people who think power matters more than love, keep going. You don't need to be loud, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to show up. Every single day, and sometimes, that's enough. Leo just called me inside. Probably wants help testing a new feature. Or maybe he just wants company. Either way, I'm going, because that's what we do. We show up for each other, and we keep building, one keystroke, one routine, and one quiet victory at a time. Before I go, I want to say thank you for listening. For believing that patience and proof can win, for understanding that some battles aren't won with noise, they're won with love. If you've got a story like ours, if you fought for someone the world tried to take from you, share it, not for fame. Not for recognition, but because someone out there needs to know they're not alone. Leo just appeared in the doorway. Gran, you coming? Yeah, sweetheart. I'm coming. He smiles. That small, quiet smile that still makes my heart full, and I realize something. We didn't just win a court case. We won our life back, and that's worth more than any app, any headline, any amount of money could ever be. Sometimes justice isn't loud, sometimes it's as quiet as a keystroke that proves the truth. If this story moved you, share it. Not for me, for the grandparent fighting for custody. For the kid who feels invisible. For anyone who's ever been told they're not enough. Your story matters. Your fight matters, and sometimes, the quietest voices change everything.